how to make your body your ally. Grief is a creative process. Grief is really about creating your personalized healing formula. When you allow it to be a creative process and not just some kind of one type of rigid methodology, it becomes fun. And part of that intentionality around making it a creative, explorative process is what is going to help you heal, is what is going to help you come back online. That's tapping in to artistry way more than it is than being a therapist. So therapy as an art really is like is a paradigm shift from the traditional talk therapy, moving more into movement, the body. You don't create art for other people. You create art for yourself, and then you allow them to interpret it as they are meant to. Is art selfish? Or is art the only thing that's really going to bring me to making any sense of getting through this human experience? And that's the connection to moving ourselves through grief and through healing, is when we give ourselves permission for art to be the sense making, especially the grief, when we can't process the loss or make sense of the yucky feelings that are stuck in our body. The only sense making is through creativity, through art, our personalized healing formula of what it's going to take to help us to function and feel good. What I love about some of the Buddhist philosophy is that we have Buddha nature, which is basically we already have everything perfectly existing inside of us. Perfect wisdom, perfect compassion, perfect love, perfect patience. We are fundamentally good. We fundamentally have all the answers. We are fundamentally happy and joyful, and the only thing that gets in the way of that are all of the delusions piled on top of what I like to call the ember of love. The ember of love that burns inside of us, that holds all of our perfect understanding and love and compassion and wisdom. And so we have all these delusions, are called delusions in Buddhism. But basically they're the narratives. They're the stories based on our traumas and our experiences that wire us to believe certain things, that don't allow us to constantly be able to access perfect love and perfect wisdom. But if you think about it, take a moment to think about, you've had moments where you've accessed perfect love, where you've accessed perfect insight, perfect patience, like you know you can access that. You know that's inside of you. But the only thing that keeps you from being able to be in that state of love, of wisdom, of patience, of kindness all the time is the very human stories and wiring and narratives that get piled on top. And in Buddhism, they say we're confused. We're confused from our Buddha nature, our natural state of fundamental goodness and fundamental understanding. In this world of personal development, it's all about self-growth, right? Becoming kinder, becoming smarter, becoming quicker, more productive, more this, more that, as if we're fundamentally not enough. And so I want to bring in the essence to my work of that actually you have everything perfect in this ember of love burning inside of you. And it's really not a process of growing and becoming more, but a process of untangling the narratives, untangling the stories, untangling the traumas, untangling the selves, untangling the identities that we've placed on us, placed on ourselves, that we've formed as this identity, as this persona. And we're able to see all the parts of like, okay, that's mine. Okay, that came from that age. Oh, that's not mine. That's from a parent. oh, that came from that experience, all these stories. So we untangle them. And then we get to integrate them by claiming these parts. So no longer trying to push them away, because that's when they cause us issues, is when we resist them, we push them away, we hide them. We block ourselves from them. We deny that part of ourselves. And we're able to go, okay, so I can love this part. Oh, this is what this part needs in order to not cause so much chaos. It needs love, it needs attention. Oh, okay, that's what that part needs. Oh, that part, okay, I actually can release that part because it's not even has to do. And so we integrate the shadow aspects that we usually cause us a lot of shame, but we bring them in to work with them in a different way. We shift the way we relate to them. We shift the way we relate to ourselves. So we claim these parts so that we can ultimately dissolve them. And in Buddhism, there's actually no self. They're just a bunch of parts that we've attached to. And we get to giggle with that crazy concept. Kinesthetic intelligence, the body's intelligence, movement intelligence. I like to consider it accelerated healing. Because if you think about it, in talk therapy, we're only using the brain. We're only using the mind. And the mind is only a very small part of a very large system. And when we're not using the entire system to inform and to process through experiences that have actually affected our entire system, we're only really addressing one part of the problem. The mind speaks language that we've developed, right? But what we're not as familiar with is the body has its own language. It's in sensation and movement. And so most of us just don't know how to speak the language of the body because we're not taught. But once we learn how to speak the language of the body, then we can start having a more integrated, holistic conversation with all of the things that are happening with all of the parts of ourselves that have been affected through trauma. Trauma doesn't just happen here, it's all over. Movement is the accelerated healing process because you're bringing another system that was impacted into the healing conversation, into the therapeutic process. We can't heal fully until all of this is also addressed and not just what's happening up here. This is sensation. This is sensual, right? We have this association with sensuality as being inherently sexual, but it's not. It's anything to do with bringing the senses online to create feelings of joy and connection and to get our happy chemicals going, right? We got the neurotransmitters, we got the hormones, we got all of these things happening at work. This is biology. We can access and resource our body and learn to relate to our body as this amazing untapped resource and really work with its intelligence of how it releases chemicals, how we are going to feel happy, simply happy, when we have the right chemicals firing off. We can do that through the simplicity of accessing sensorial experiences. We're just wired that way. We're accessing the sensorial experience. We're shifting the way that we relate to ourselves. Would you speak to a friend the way that you speak to yourself? How many friends would you have if you spoke to your friends the way you speak to yourself? Usually it's a pretty confronting question. On a cellular level, we're shifting the way that we relate to ourselves. So even just like sitting here with me now, even just as simple placing your hands on your skin and feeling that and feeling the pressure of your hand on your body, this is a sensual experience. It doesn't have to be more than this. This is sensual. Being sweet and treating ourselves the way that we would treat someone we love. You comfort somebody that you love, usually through touch, through comforting words. Maybe you cook them food and nourish them. Maybe you light candles and make the environment feel safe and welcoming. Very easy ways to bring sensorial experience as part of shifting the way you relate to yourself, with kindness and comfort and creating trust and care and safety. Understanding the layers of what is in the body, the system. Now that we're bringing all of this into the full system of the body, the full therapeutic process of the body, what is stored in the chest? What's being stored in the spine? What's being stored in the hips? Are your hips really tight? Chances are, partially, it's because maybe you need to stretch more. And also, you can ask yourself, I have tight hips. Do I experience a lot of shame? Do I experience a lot of rigidity? Do I have a hard time feeling creative? Do I have a hard time expressing myself? And you get to kind of consider all of these other systems that are at place with physical sensation of what's happening in the body. Grief. Ouch, grief is stored here. Shame stored in the hips, the pelvic floor. It's really fascinating once you start taking inventory of what's there. So then that's why I move every single day, is because I'm rinsing. I'm rinsing out emotions that are getting lodged in my body. Trauma gets stored in the body. When the brain can't make sense of it, when it's too overwhelming, it gets transferred to the body. Or maybe your trauma actually happened in your body. So maybe it's being stored there. Release to these parts that are stuck and stagnant. That's why it is so important to move, to allow the body to express itself without words and through sensation. 2 years ago, prior to what you see now, prior to practicing all of this work, I hated being in my own skin. I was so self-conscious of myself, being seen, being receptive, expressing myself, like literally would get, my throat would close up speaking in groups. As a young child, I was the kid that ran out of the classroom when I was called on. I never thought I would be this person that I'd be comfortable on social media. I never really got into social media until 2 years ago when I started doing all of this work, because a whole other part of me came online. And so I don't want to teach people to be like me. I want them to feel their authentic expression. Their authentic expression, which is not going to look like mine. This is my personality type. Everyone has a different personality type. But the results of this work will get you to whatever your authentic expression is, because you are rinsing out all the things that are blocking you, the delusions that we talked about, the delusions that are piled on top of your perfect experience of love. Just untangling. We're just moving and allowing things that are not ours or that need to be processed to be moved through the body so that we can become magnetic, so that we are opening and clearing out, so that we can let in, so that we can receive, so that we can magnetize, all like the buzzwords, but it's so true. When we clear out the crap that we are holding onto, intentionally, unintentionally, then we get to make space for being magnetic towards everything that we do want. We have to release what we're holding in our bodies that are blocking our energy, that to the point where, and you're going to start watching this now, people that slouch. You can start becoming attuned to people holding things in their body based on the way that they hold themselves, the way they walk, slouching, or just rigidity in general, this, that, body languages. Sometimes it's just an energetic thing. You meet someone and you're just like, gosh, that was really difficult to connect with that person. And you don't know why. That person, or maybe ourselves, we're holding on to something. Something is blocking us from being able to connect, from being able to be felt. Train ourselves to relate to ourselves this way, especially through accessing sensorial pleasure. Always accessible. And that's the exciting thing, is that's how we can start training ourselves to regulate our nervous systems and regulate ourselves and trust ourselves to take care of ourselves, because we know how to get that boost, serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, like whatever type of chemical boost that you are requiring, you know how to give it to yourself. Most of our serotonin is actually in our gut, which is why it's so important to feed ourselves food that is going to make us feel good, because it's actually going to release really happy chemicals. So hacks like that, use science, use biology, use your own evolution intelligence for your advantage. right? We spend so much time like Googling, what do I do to this? What do I do for that? When it's like the body knows. People really want to escape their bodies. People really want to escape their physical form. That the human form is this limiting experience to ascend. That makes me really, really sad. Because the body hears you when it says that. It's so intelligent, and then it starts to malfunction. That's not the point of the human experience. Even if you do want to believe we're souls, and we're light warriors, light beings that have chosen to incarnate meet in the body, in the flesh. We're here for a reason, and that is to make peace with the human experience. To make peace with our physical form, our physical world. And so we spend all this time, it feels like, trying to escape the body, when really it's about befriending what is and coming to the juiciest, most blissful peace in the physical world. That it's not about blasting off into the cosmos, because guess what? That trip will end, and then boom, you're right back in your physical form. You're right back in the human body. You're right back in your apartment. You're right back in, wherever. Got to go make money. You have to have a job. You have to deal with other humans. That is what is going to help you feel happier in this human experience. Is not the constant blasting off and then coming back and being jarred and coming back to the physical form, but being able to find your nirvana, your enlightenment right here. It's harder, but it's the one that's going to actually last, and it's not going to be jarring. It's going to be consistent. When we consistently take care of ourselves and learn how to take care of ourselves, that's what builds self-trust. That's how we build trusting ourselves, right? And so if we think about even from a developmental standpoint, when we were young and we didn't know how to take care of ourselves, and it was the responsibility of an adult to take care of us, and perhaps they didn't meet our needs. Happens a lot. As an adult now, we get to meet those needs because we get to explore, how do I want to be taken care of? How do I want to take care of myself? And how do I build that trust? Because so much of the trust when we're young with the child development and trusting our caretakers is how well they can take care of us and meet our needs, make us feel good. And we trust people that can consistently make us feel good. So as an adult, when we can consistently make ourselves feel good, that builds us to trust ourselves to take care of ourselves. That's how we can feel safety in our bodies. That's how we build trust and safety. Because once we have trust and safety with ourselves, we're unshakable. We are unshakable. Working with trauma is tricky because you can't change what happened. What's happened has happened. And a lot of times we can't even make sense of it. We can't make sense of what has happened to us. This is the integration. The creative integration is when there's no sense making from trauma of what's happened. We get to be creative with what is going to work for us. How are we going to create our lives every single day that builds trust and safety in our bodies so that we're unshakable? The daily rituals of being so deeply devoted and proactive about your happiness. You're really struggling with grief and sadness. You want the chemical hits throughout the day that will keep you going, that will keep you from being stuck, not being able to get out of bed. These are the devotional rituals that you put in place. Alignment is when you can trust spirit, God, universe, life, whatever you want to call it. You can trust that external source and you can trust yourself. That's alignment. Alignment is spiritual meets physical. Trusting both the spiritual and the physical, that is alignment. And when you're in that alignment, that is when magnetism happens. It's the integration, the physical and the spiritual integration. I like to call it sensorial consent. Because so much of what we experience, especially through the trauma, was not with consent. And that could be for a matter of things. That's just boundary crossing in any way. That can be things that were said, things that were done, things that happened. Anything that was not something that you wanted can cause trauma. These are all very feminine ways of relating to yourself because these are all nourishment. This is all care, love, kindness, gentleness, tenderness, softness, emotions. And then you can start moving more, and this is the sacred integration that I talk about, into the masculine piece of setting boundaries, right? Because caretaking, self-love, self-care is also about boundary setting. It's about organization, structure, routine, discipline, disciplining ourselves to make decisions that are good for us. We can trust our discernment. It's another level of self-trust that we get to develop. So self-trust on the emotional and physical level, that's kind of the feminine aspect of self-trust. And then integrating the masculine level of self-trust is our discernment, is when and how we make decisions, put up boundaries, things like that. Really, really get attuned and clear to what we need and what we don't need.